We talk about Iran and the risks for the country of a wider conflict with Israel. We have the pleasure to discuss these implications with Ali Vaez, project director for Iran at the International Crisis Group. Ali, thanks for being with us. What kind of escalation could be expected between Israel and Iran? What could be the targets, but also the weapons of this direct confrontation?
Israel is certainly going to retaliate after Iran's attack on Israel on October 1st, and it's going to do so in a substantial and forceful way. We still don't know what targets Israel would have in mind, but they range from military installations related to the IRGC. This could be missile launch sites, weapon depots, weapon manufacturing facilities, or even command and control centers. Israel might also target Iran's sources of income, whether it's refineries or energy installations. And finally, there's risk of targeting the nuclear facilities in Iran as well. The likeliest kind of weapons that Israel could use are either F-35s, as it did in April in retaliation for the first Iranian attack on Israel, with more than 300 drones and missiles. What Israel did was that it basically parked F-35s in the airspace of Iraq and it fired air-to-land ballistic missiles targeting Iranian missile defense system S-300, which Iran had purchased from Russia a few years before that. So F-35s are one option, and the flight path most likely is going to be through Syria and Iraq. Syria air defenses obviously are incapable of stopping Israelis, and Iraq has no real control over its own airspace because it's the United States who calls the shots there. Any other pathway would require flying over Jordan or Saudi Arabia, and I don't think any of those countries want to be involved in any way. Israel, of course, also has nuclear submarines parked in the Persian Gulf. Those could be used as well. And finally, Israel has an extraordinary covert operation capabilities as it has demonstrated in Iran time and time again. So we might see a hybrid attack that, in addition to kinetic side targeting facilities on the ground or even underground, could include assassination, cyber attacks, info ops aimed at destabilizing the regime. And from what we have seen in terms of messaging of Prime Minister Netanyahu and groups and institutions aligned with him, it really does appear that Israel is perceiving this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to destabilize, if not neutralize, a regime in Iran which is at the same time at the lowest point in its legitimacy at home.
How could the risk of a wider conflict between Israel and Iran impact and fragilize the Iranian political system?
Look, first of all, there is no doubt that the Iranians are going to retaliate when there is an attack that is substantial enough that it will be very difficult for the Iranians to overlook and absorb, as they did back in April. Then the Iranians pretended that nothing really had happened, and the one battery of missile defense system that was targeted was almost completely unimportant. But this time around, if there is an attack that is substantive, I think they would have to respond, and they would have to respond in a way that we would end up in a ballistic missile ping pong between Iran and Israel that could easily spiral out of control. Now, this idea that an attack on Iran could have the same kind of effect as Israel has had with Hezbollah, I think it's wishful thinking. Hezbollah, at the end of the day, is a non-state actor. Iran is a real state, and although it has demonstrated that it's pretty vulnerable and weak in the region, but it doesn't mean that at home, the regime does not have a tight grip on power. It has diffused command and control, and there is no viable alternative to this regime at home or abroad. And so it's very unlikely that Israel would manage to get what it wants, which is regime change on the cheap, that by destabilizing the regime through an attack, there would be an uprising inside Iran that would come and turn Iran into a Jeffersonian democracy. What is more likely is that the Revolutionary Guards would become more powerful in a militarized situation, and also that in addition to getting into a very dangerous tit-for-tat with Israel, it would also encourage its allies in the region to start targeting US forces, and the US will be sucked into yet another disastrous war in the Middle East. In addition to that, the regime is likely to become much more repressive at home, and we might see a serious crackdown on internal forces, which would further deepen discontent within the society. And we might see some of the border provinces where Iranian minorities, ethnic and sectarian, reside, like Khuzestan or Sistan Balochistan or Kurdistan, to pick up arms against the central state. And so we might see also a degree of internal strife that would be, again, disastrous for the entire region. So this concept of an easy decapitation that would result in destabilization that would neutralize the Iranian state, I think is nothing other than magical thinking.
Thank you, Ali Vaez, for having been with us today.
You too. Take care.